salaries are basically right here. Okay. That's where their salaries are. When Escambia County was booming and people were making hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars, no one at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office in the public sector got their salaries starting salaries raised to $50,000 a year. Okay, you know, they stayed right at 28, 29. Within a year, you can go to 31, 32. That's what you get. So when people, I'm down to my last nerve on this beating up public employees, as you can well tell, because you know I did a career in the military, and while they promised me certain things, I didn't get it. And so now I'm concerned, as being the sheriff of Escambia County, that we've selected the public sector employees, you know, for a good body correction. Okay? Well, you need to look at the facts, folks. Like I tell you, don't stick your head in the sand. Don't do the ostrich defense on them. Look at things for what they are. Is the economy bad? It's horrible. It's horrible. I'm a business owner too. I can tell you it's horrible. I'm not making anywhere near the money that I made in our private businesses that I made back before Hurricane Ida. But I can also tell you that the people in the public sector, my deputies and correctional officers, are not getting rich either. And when the economy was booming in Escambia County, nobody stepped up for the deputies, and everybody said, hey, it's wonderful here in Escambia County. People are coming from all over the world to buy property, and our economy is booming. You know, we've forgotten these folks for the last, 15, 20 years. Let's raise their salaries. I mean, they're some of the lowest paid in the state. You know, they really need to start making $45,000 a year. Let's raise these folks' salaries. That, folks, did not happen. That did not happen. And so now that the economy's done a downturn, okay, and they do at least have stable employment, who are we focusing on? You're making way too much money. You know, you got that steady salary and benefit. No, you're making way too much money. Okay. I'm sorry, folks, that's nonsense. Okay. In the downward economic trend, it's the public sector and the bureaucracy, if you will, that keeps the economy afloat. Lines at the unemployment office, who processes the claims? Folks on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, who processes the claims? That's where the public sector steps in and keeps the ball rolling. But now they've become a victim of many folks who are saying, well, you just been on that gravy train too long. Nay, I say, that's just not true. You need to look at the facts and look at the entire spectrum. Don't look at one compartmented piece of it. Yes, sir?
I know one of the things that the county is frustrated on is the, for lack of a better term, the vagrants that are standing on the corners. And you can haul off that guy on the corner of Fairfield and W Street who's about 6 foot 180, brown hair, very abusive in his language, and probably not wrapped very tight based upon my observations. But are you getting anywhere on, I know it has to do all with legal issues and stuff like that, but are we getting anywhere on getting rid of these people?
No. At this juncture, no. And I agree with you. To me, that's the wrong answer. For someone to say that I have to live in that cesspool is the wrong answer. But I can tell you, when you turn your government over to weirdos, okay, you get weird responses to very common sense problems. If you all recall, it was probably a little over a year ago. I talked to this issue. The county gave us an ordinance to work on panhandling, and I said, because I'm one of those guys that, I try not to, to me, this is, you don't do the, is that a landmine? Try to avoid the landmine. You don't want to step on one. So when we determine that we're going to take a new direction, I'll get on the phone, call the sheriffs, have my legal department do a little bit of research so we don't step off the edge of that precipice. And we found out that enforcing the panhandling ordinances was a huge issue with the ACLU, the Criminal Defense Bar. Now, from a common sense perspective, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, that drags our community down when I've got folks out there that are basically freeloaders. Less than 3% of the panhandlers, and we've done a lot of research on this, are truly suffering from mental disorders to the point that they probably should be in the appropriate institution treatment program. About 3% of those. Prior to enforcing the current ordinance that's been basically, struck, the first week we went out with Catholic Charities, Coalition for the Homeless. We invited the ACLU and the Criminal Defense Bar. They refused to participate. And we actually went throughout the county at those intersections on 9 Mile. We stayed outside the city. But anywhere they congregated. Bayou and Brent's a great place where they congregate. Now they're camping out under the overpass under there. And we gave them a copy of the new ordinance. Okay, we informed them of what the enforcement would be. Catholic Charities was there along with Coalition for the Homeless, and they said if you need a place to stay, If you're looking for training, you know, a meal, etc., here's where you can go for that. And the responses we got back from many of them, like I love the guy that drags his foot, you know, in place like he's, you know, a wounded veteran. You know, when we arrested him the next week, you know, he's really. So it's all a con. And several of them told us that I work enough hours during the day that my dollar threshold is, I think the lowest one was about $80. See, after I make $80, which by the way, of course, folks, is tax-free, you know, I've got enough for my beer, my cigarettes, you know, food for the dog. I can go to the you know, the cheap hotel and sleep, and I'm out of here. And he said sometimes I make it in four hours, you know, sometimes I have to work 6, but when I make $80 a day. Some of them out on 9 Mile, their average intake is $100 to $200 a day. So it's very lucrative for what they're doing. So you've got to remember, my approach, and my staff gets tired of hearing me say this, you know, you got to work the right end of the problem or you never resolve the problem. So the right end of the problem is not arresting the panhandlers. The right end of the problem is what?
Educating the people not to give them the frickin' money.
Yeah.
It's us.
We're the ones that create the problem.
Absolutely. I tell folks, you know, it's like fishing in your bathtub. Does anybody fish in their bathtub? No. Why not? There's no fish there. Well, guess what? If there's no money for panhandlers, they will go someplace else. Now, Mobile did a strict crackdown on the panhandlers, and many of them have come in from Alabama. They have informed us of that. And said, well, what are you doing here? Well, they cracked down on us over there, so, you know, we had to leave. We had to leave Mobile. So they've migrated over here, which is a target-rich environment. And I agree with you. I mean, two things irritate me when I'm watching other motorists. Throwing your cigarette butts outside your car. Okay, that just, that inflames me for some reason. And the other one is when I see that dollar come out the window for one of these folks. And again, it's not that I'm not compassionate, because we reached out to that group in compassion and again, an educational process to let them know the community's here to assist you if you need assistance. However, you know, you're a drain on the economy, you're doing a lot of things. Now, who wants to move to a place that, you know, those panhandlers are everywhere? So visually, it's horrific to have that out there. Right now, the state attorney, the county commission, or I should say the county attorney in conjunction with our, is going through that to try to, again, make it more of a model ordinance. But right now, we're not making a lot of progress on getting an ordinance. And let me give you the downside to that, too. I don't know if I've spoken to this issue with you or not. We do a panhandler sweep, we round them up. We own them. We own them.
Yeah.
Many of them haven't been to a doctor for 30, 40 years. Dental work, forget it. Probably never had any dental work. And guess who pays for it?
We do.
If they need a heart transplant, we pay for it. If they have HIV, hepatitis, we pay for it. If they need dental work, we pay for it. So that's the downside to doing this roundup, because you can, and I can tell you, my jail medical costs, the few times we've conducted those sweeps, just, I mean, shoots up. Now I've got, I think right down to 7, I think, HIV patients. That's running us around $500,000 a year to treat them. So again, be careful what you wish for. While again, it's a great idea. I didn't want you to arrest all of them. I'd be more than happy to do that. Okay, but you're going to need to write me a check at some point, because there's rules to incarceration, and I don't have any choice but to follow those once I make the arrest. So we need to look for some unique and innovative ideas in some of these issues to come to a successful resolution, because the way we're doing business in so many areas is not working. It's not working, and we're continuing to do it. So, and I'll be honest with you, since we've got so many people in elected positions, and primarily in the area of the legislatures, the Senate and the House, until we can elect people that have got their heads screwed on straight, all right, that will stop this nonsense and quit funding programs that are going nowhere, we're going to contend with this, and the downward spiral is going to continue. Because, well, let me give you an example. We've watched an uptick in juvenile crime over the last 6 months, ages about 13 to 17, I think probably is the highest one. They're starting to get involved with some home invasions, car burglaries, etc. All right. So we're looking at, should we do a curfew? You know, should there be an ordinance for a curfew, etc. Well, our problem right now is because of the Department of Juvenile Justice. If our officers arrest a juvenile, we have no place to take them and turn them over to. So we make the arrest, do the processing, we try to find a guardian or parent to come and sign for them if the crime is not have to sit with them until someone comes and signs for them. There's no place to leave them. So my officer will be tied up between 6 and 8 hours on one arrest. Now, as a young officer, what do you think you're going to avoid? Just think through this. You get arrested in the juveniles? No, buddy. We call it 10-8. I'm on the road. I'm fighting crime. I need to get out here and do things. So I'm going to go out here and arrest a juvenile and be tied up. And that's just, again, folks, common sense from a management perspective. My young officers don't want to do that. So we said, let's get with the Department of Juvenile Justice and work an issue here to where we can start arresting the committers of crime, regardless of their age, and facilitate the process so we can attack that particular area. You know what it costs to incarcerate a juvenile today? About $380 a day. It's just, that's ridiculous. But we've got all of these requirements from the state and primarily the federal government on, they got to have, so many thread count linen. Yeah, they got to have internet access. It's ridiculous. Big facetious, obviously. But it's goofy, the things that we've got to do. I can incarcerate an adult for about $45. So we've got to, again, folks, we've got to sit down and say, look, it's wonderful to put this kid into aromatherapy while he's incarcerated, and you may think that that will help them, divert them from a life of crime, but there's really no data to indicate that any of this nonsensical touchy-feely stuff you're doing is really resulting in any tangible benefits to society. So we need to stop that. But until we elect people that will sit down and tell folks the blunt truth about that all of these things that you propose that we do are nice ideas, we can't afford it. We can't afford it. And that needs to become the watchword for folks. I'd love to do it. I can't afford to do it. And if I can't afford to do it, neither can you. And so we're not going to do that. But you've got to elect some folks to office that have got their heads screwed on straight, that have got some common sense, that are willing to stand up and set aside any political aspirations they may have to tell the community and the public the truth.
Well, that's, how do you come up with that?
Yeah.
Why would anybody want to go into the system?
Yeah.
The meeting is at time. Some of you have storefronts that you need to get to. Feel free. I understand that Sheriff Morgan has some time this morning. If you want to stay around and talk to him some more, feel free to.
And, well, a gentleman over here had a question, and then we will wrap it up. I know you folks need to go get your business. Yes, sir, you had a question or observation?
Yeah, I had a two-parter. What's the recidivism rate for the young people, whether it's the Bloods or the Crips or the other guys? That's part number one.
Your recidivism rate always runs around 60% for folks. Now, depending upon the intervention program, oddly enough, your faith-based programs have a much higher success rate.